Hi everyone, can you hear me? Awesome. First of all, apologies for joining late, right? Um, this is something that I can attribute, and I think this is a very good example of what we are going to speak today, right? Uh, we all say that AI is going to replace human beings or human task force, right? Today, when I was leaving my home, AI told me, Google Maps told me that I'll reach this destination in 45 minutes. So I took a decision that, okay, this is the time when I'm going to leave and reach this place. But at that point of time, AI, or for that matter, any machine learning model, didn't really account for that a bus would stop somewhere Shivaji Nagar. So now, took a decision based on machine learning, started at that point where I would reach this destination on time, actually ended up being late because there was another variable that was not available to machine learning, right? That was something that I identified while I was driving to this place. That is where I took a decision. I rerouted and I said, okay, this is not the place through which I should be going to my destination, and I should try and reach using a different path. So, what is that I took? That's a decision that I took. That's a human decision, right? This is a decision that helped me to navigate a point where I was probably going to be delayed, and actually was delayed, but then it could have been further if I would have stuck with the original route or the original input provided by Google Maps, right? So that is the whole topic that we want to cover today. We want to work and we want to understand what exactly is AI offering us, right? Is it really a threat for us or is it an enabler? And where do humans, and especially you people who are coming out of an MBA college, who are going to spend 2 years here, what is that you should expect from the industry? Does that make sense? What we are going to do today is we are going to first of all set the stage, talk about where exactly is AI and where exactly human comes into picture. What's the challenge that we have and what are we fighting against? Right? Is it something that we are really fighting against, or is it something that we can use for our benefit? And we are going to talk about where do humans really make a difference, right? What is that we need to improve on, and real world AI failures. And this is a very specific slide. I really want you guys to kind of understand, and this will help drive the narrative as well. You can see the numbers, right? I would not spend too much time on the numbers. What I would say is, yes, AI is here. Yes, it is enabling a lot of things that we are doing. It is doing much faster than what we are doing or we were doing. But is that really a threat? So if you go back to history, earlier, how did account? I come from a lot of banking experience, so my examples would relate a lot from that side. So when we started the original banking journey, right, there was something called Bahi Khata, right? People would write things in books. That is something was taking time. Transfer of trades, if you are going to place a stock order, that was all manually done. People will shout in those trading rooms, and based on that, the information was then listed in those registers, and those registers were then transferred. So it was a very, very cumbersome manual process, but the world was still going on. We were still growing. Then came Microsoft. It came up with its tool called Excel. Then there was a first point where people started feeling, is this something that is now going to take my job? Is it just too difficult for me? Is it going to kill the workforce? The answer was an astounding no. So we eventually ended up using Excel. We learned that skill and we started implementing it in our day to day work life, and that helped us really become more efficient, more transparent, and we were able to do things much faster. The world started moving much faster. The world started absorbing and adopting to AI, to Excel and those softwares which were helping us. Now, fast forward, there's huge amount of data that is there, right? Everything that we do is a data point. The moment you log in into your application, your phone, your Instagram, your Facebook, your Snapchat, that becomes your data. So they say data is the new oil. But if using that data, if I can use AI and then say, okay, with this data, I know that you need something where, and this is the best place to find that thing, right? I am just enabling you, I'm just helping you. So I'll give you an example. So one of the work that we are doing, you would have seen, how many of you use Amazon? Almost everyone, right? You've placed orders on Amazon, right? You would have seen something called Rufus. It's an agent that is basically saying, so when you used to go to a shop, right, you would have somebody, a salesperson, come to you, help you with whatever you are looking for, right? If you are asking for a shoe, if you are asking for some dress, the person is there to guide you, help you with the assortment, the products that they have, and based on that you go ahead and make your decision whether I want to buy it or not, right? Rufus is doing that for you. So it's an enabler. So if you are saying, okay, I want to buy new Nike shoes, right? Today the price of those shoes is say 4,000 rupees. You simply tell that it's like you're telling a human being that whenever the price drops, just let me know, right? Similarly, you can give instructions to Rufus as well and tell him that look, I want this to be this, whatever is the historical price, I want this product to be bought at what, 2,000 rupees. Whenever there is 50% discount, place an order for me. That's where it is helping you. It's there to help everyone. It is not taking anybody's job, right? It is just enabling you to make better decisions. This is one example that all of us could relate. Just extrapolate this thought, take it to a place, to an industry where, for example, you are doing some financial transaction. Some people might be doing trading here. They would appreciate if somebody can tell you what is the price movement that I expect for a particular stock, right? If somebody gives you that information, right? A lot of times I hear historical stories. Oh, this stock was 10 rupees and now it is 5,000 rupees, right? That's a historical fact. Everyone now knows. What do I do with that information? I need somebody to tell me what is the next stock that could do that, or the stock that I'm planning to buy. Is that stock going to be the next 5,000 or 50,000 stock? If my agent helps me with that, if any agent, if any bot or any AI tool can help me with confidence and tell, say, hey, this XYZ stock that you're looking at, this is what is going to go up in the market, it is something that is going to give you these many times of return, and you make that purchase based on that advice, that's basically helping you, assisting you, right? So it's not something that is going to challenge you, it's not something that is going to take away anybody's job. It is there to help everyone in a way that they can take faster decisions. Having said that, the way you use that information, right, that is your human edge. That is where it is the ability of a human being to decipher that information is going to make the difference. So if I say Rufus is going to tell me, very simple example. So Rufus tells me that okay, your Nike shoe is at 2,000 rupees, and you say okay, fine, do not make a purchase. You have given me this information. Now I compare it with what is there on Flipkart, right? Or Meesho or any other app which is there, which is offering that product. And what if there is another platform which offers this product at 1,900 rupees? You got the information, you got the alert. Now based on your decision, you said fine, I think I would be buying something from Flipkart where there is better discount because I'm getting a better value out of it. So that is where your human advantage comes in. You have taken a decision. The power of taking the decision is still with humans. It is our own cognitive ability that helps us take those decisions. It is just an enabler that AI has offered you some data driven insight or input that you can take. Okay, fine, this is something that AI is telling me, but let me use my brain, right? We have a brain which we are trained, we are educated, we understand nuances of a lot of different industries or the work that we are doing. And that is where it is absolutely a good enabler, but not something that is going to replace us. Make sense? You guys are doing a lot of, you're going to spend a lot of effort next 2 years learning a lot of things, right? It would be various subjects that you will be working on. Now during our time there was no AI. The max that we used to get was Google search, right? And there were tools which would help the faculties to identify whether there is plagiarism or not, right? So we also had to say okay, fine, I get this information from one source, but I then play around with that information, put in my thoughts around it, and make sure that the presentation or the document that I'm submitting looks like my own original. So that's what we used to do, right? But that was 15 years back. Now you have AI. Now if people start using blindly and say okay, this is a prompt and I want this PPT to be presented, so the entire system is smart enough to identify whether have you plagiarized it or if you really used it as an enabler and understood and given your thoughts. There will be a lot of case studies that you'll go through. Those case studies are data points which AI would also know. It would also know the history behind why that case study came into picture, and what was the best remedy or action that could have been taken. It will give you that sort of an input, but it is your intelligence, it is your understanding of the subject, where you would then say, okay, fine, I really understand and appreciate the insights that. So it has brought in lot of information in a very concise manner from a different sources, but now it is up to you. It is entirely your decision, your ability to decipher, and that is going to differentiate between who is going to get higher marks or who's going to excel versus somebody who may not be getting the best outcome from that input. The input is there for everyone. It is for you to say, okay, this is how I'm going to use this input. If you're simply just going to say, fine, I've got this input, let me just copy and paste it and get away with this, you're not using it at the best of its capability. It has a lot of data points, but it will not be as compared to what you offer. Make sense? I think by and large, from the capability perspective, right, AI can offer you a lot on the insights. It can do things much faster, right? But when it comes to human being, what is that we really offer? If I pinch somebody here, you will have an emotion, that is pain, right? You might also have an anger against me. Why am I pinching you? That is how humans behave. That is how we think about every little input that is provided, whether it is a visual input, whether it is something where some sensory organ is touched, and we understand that this is how we have to behave or react to that particular input. So AI is offering you a lot of insights. You get those insights. It is up to you to decide the context of it. For example, I'll give you an example from Amazon. Yes, it's a very famous example during the hiring process. So Amazon kind of trained its data models in a way where they would identify, okay, this is the role that I'm going to hire, and this is the kind of profile that I'm looking at. They had a lot of resumes, right? Everybody was applying. So any one position is open in Amazon, you would have around 5,000, 6,000 people applying to it, right? So people would say, okay, I have got a lot of inputs, let me make sure that I can, use these inputs, say how, what sort of people are applying to my positions, and what is the best fit, whoever I hired, what is the best kind of mix. So they created models around it. They had a very famous AI agent that was doing for their recruitment process. But one thing that they could not really identify was a bias. So they did not understood, or they did not account for the bias that was creeping in their model, and that was around hiring male employees. So a resume of an equally talented female versus an equally talented male for a particular role, the bot will always say hire the male candidate. That was something, the bot was biased, and that bias was identified by the hiring managers, because the hiring manager actually went through all those 6 7 steps. Their feedbacks were not aligning with what the AI agent was saying. They were of the opinion that XYZ female who had applied, that candidate was better suited for the role. And then they realized, they went ahead, they evaluated their models, and when they evaluated their models, they identified that there is a bias, and that bias was then rectified. And that is where human intelligence comes into picture. You have to understand the context. I know that I have to use AI for something, but what is the real context? Your prompt could be absolutely amazing, but still, if you do not understand the response and the context of why you are using it, it may not be the best response or the best use of AI. Too heavy? No. You guys are following it? Hungry? Sleepy? Okay. There's another aspect to it again. The good one point that I want to talk about is the ethical reasoning. There's a very famous example in 2010, and this is more example driven. Apologies if you guys are little bored with these examples, but let me give you so that you'll appreciate the reasoning behind putting all of this in the presentation, and how AI is actually, humans versus AI. That conversation, these points will help you drive it. At least it will bring in more clarity. So 2010, I'm sure you guys may not be fully aware, there was an economic recession, 2008 subprime crisis. We would have read about it. Around that time in the financial market, there was a lot of turbulence, right? But that was a time when people had already started using these automated um, trade punching systems, right? Huge hedge funds in US, they would use those things for high frequency trading. So they basically, what it means is, they would use an computer algorithm to punch in the trades that would help them to make more money. So like when we guys buy or sell a stock, we do it manually, right? We go to a portal, some application, some website, and then place those orders. We say, okay, I want to buy Reliance or Infosys or whatever, right? But that is 1 2 10 15 20 stocks or scripts that you can buy in 1 minute or 1 hour, whatever is the timeline. Those algorithms are so fast that they could buy not just those stocks, they could buy different instruments, and they could do it in fraction of a second. Now this is where they were making a lot of money. Even before you can punch in your numbers, you say, okay, I want to buy this, they would have already executed at the best price. So that is how those hedge funds and those financial institutions were trading. 2010, around May, there was an incident where one of the hedge funds actually was running a script, and that script placed multiple sell orders for a particular futures, and then it ended up drying the Nasdaq by 1000 points in 30 minutes. It was $1 trillion that was lost within 30 minutes, because that app or the agent or algorithm, it was designed in a way just to make sure that it offers the seller or the company that it is owned by, give them the best profit. It had no emotional or ethical understanding of it. So since it had no emotional quotient or any ethical understanding, it went ahead, it said, okay, let me wipe out the entire market, I don't care, I just want to make money for my company. And that is how the context and the ethical understanding or ethical use of AI is really important. If we do not understand, we can dry out the entire, because the power of processing and because of the power of data, those algorithms and those agents can do things much faster than us. So we have to be ethical while we are using those capabilities, and make sure that they align with the ethical boundaries that are there, right? Who decides those ethical boundaries? There are bodies. The moment this incident happened, the Security and Exchange Board in US came into picture, and then they said, okay, fine, let us bring in more checks and balances, such incident does not happen. Has been 15 years, such an incident has not happened. Okay, so I think from context, we've already covered this part. Yes. So you know what is the problem, right? You know that we have somebody who can do the work that we were doing manually much faster and probably in a more efficient manner. So where does that leave us? What is that we can do, right? Now, all of you would have your own professional journey down the line. Somebody would join a finance company, somebody would join probably a manufacturing, or somebody would join an IT company, right? The the trick or the key difference between you excelling versus you falling behind is essentially your capability to grasp thing, and not just grasping in terms of memorizing stuff, but articulating in your head what that does really mean. If I am giving you set of information, can you decipher and can you make sense out of it and use that information in the real world? That is the skill that you would have to learn, and that is where you would have to bring, that's the difference that you bring in. So if you know about something, right, but if you are not able to use that information in those 6 or 7 dimensions, the emotional quotient or the ethical aspect of it, then you are essentially not using that information in the right manner, right? So the key here is, from you should first try and understand whatever field you are in. So for example, if somebody is in banking, you're there in the front end banking, what is your core system look like? If I have to make a cross border payment, I have to transfer money, ask yourself, everybody is using UPI here? Yes. How many of you understand how UPI works, or have really tried to understand how the money moves? Anyone? And that's the difference. We use things in this world. How many of you have actually tried to deposit a check in a bank? Anyone? Very nice. So at least 70-80% of people have at least deposited a check. Do you know the working of a check? When you deposit a check, how it goes to, how the money is deducted from your account and credited to the customer, to whoever the beneficiary is? You guys know? Very good. Anybody would like to take a call and explain? Please.
It goes through a clearing house. So when supposingly if I deposit a check in my bank account, the cashier make an entry in his system, and then that entry will be passed through a clearing house, and there are a lot of checks that is done before the transaction is showed on the when the one who is receiving the amount, and then that's how it's transferred to his bank account.
Great. I think you're 95% there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So
Right.
between two banks, there is one mediator, a clearing house, which completes the transaction.
Fair enough. I think you're almost there. So yes.
Thank
So
you,
you
sir.
what's your name?
Aryan Pathak
Aryan.
Chakrabarti.
So Aryan here has explained the process of, how a check is cleared once it is deposited versus how the money is actually credited to the beneficiary. But there are multiple steps which are there. Have you ever thought, Aryan, how that check actually went to the clearing house? Where is the office of a clearing house? Is it located in this state? Is it in RBI office? Is it in Delhi? That level of understanding, why is it important? It is important because check deposit is still not cleared in real time until and unless it is within the same bank. If I have to transfer funds between state bank and say some cooperative bank, right, it takes time. Why is that, right? This helps you the moment you start getting deeper into the why part. Ask those questions. This will help you to say, okay, if you go ahead and work with state bank in your future career and you understand this entire process, you can bring in that efficiency. And that's the difference between you working there versus somebody else who's been doing that job for 15 years but never really spent time to improve the process. And that's the human part of it. You understand the process. AI would give you a lot of information. Okay, this is the clearing house, go to this clearing house, that clearing, that is static information. How you use that, how you bring in that difference to make sure that, okay, look, I understand this is the process. 4 o'clock this check is clear. Why is it uh, collected at 4 o'clock? Why can't we do it a little earlier? All those questions, the moment you start asking yourself questions, you understand the process and you start asking questions, that is where you're going to bring in the efficiency in the overall process. And that is where you say, okay, I am the one who is doing things which AI is not doing. I may ask a prompt, but AI is probably not aware that the bus driver who was supposed to come at 4 o'clock is today delayed by 30 minutes because of traffic. These are variables which only you would know. You would know that every day he comes from a particular route, and that is why it is coming, the check is getting picked up at 4:30, and because the clearing house closes at 5, this check is not getting cleared. This is the human intelligence, human understanding, the context. If you get that context, then you will be able to add more value to the overall chain as compared to simply querying static data. Make sense?
True, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
I think we've covered the other parts, but one thing I would still like to say, storytelling is a key aspect of human intelligence, right? You guys would have gone through blood tests. Yes, there would be seniors, elders in your family. You would have actually taken their samples, blood test, and a lot of times now with Google and everything, we've got into this habit of asking that question. Oh, my cholesterol level is showing 213. My age is XYZ. Google will tell you that the worst possible case, it will almost take you to an heart attack because it does not have the context. It does not have the capability to understand what is your physical health now, how are other parameters. It's not connecting all the dots. It is just taking the input that you have given. You have just told him cholesterol. Now, based on historical data, they would have taken you, okay, this is what worst case can happen, and then you panic, right? And when you go to a doctor, an experienced physician who says, okay, fine, a cardiologist, he says, okay, he sees your report, he sees you, he examines you, and he then says, there's absolutely nothing to worry about, in a very calm voice. It helps you, right? You feel more confident that this report could be slightly wrong. You take that interpretation from his response. What does that mean? It's his ability to do storytelling. He's telling you a story that you are fine, there's nothing wrong about you. That is what each one of us bring to the table. I am telling you a story, I am giving you examples. So essentially, AI can do a lot of processing, it can do a lot of things, but it will never be able to give you a story. It can never calm you. It will always be okay, fine. I get you a factual data. Give them an input that based on that input they will give you some sort of a response. Now it is going to create different sets of emotions. You may become very agitated, like the example of medical health. There could be a case where you take a financial decision and then make a loss of it as well, because we are not using our intelligence, or we're just blindly saying okay, this is what the AI says. A lot of times nowadays, because of those AI generated videos, our parents are there, very senior people, right? They see something on WhatsApp, right? They say okay, fine, this is true. I had arguments with my father. He would say this is there on WhatsApp, it is true. I'm like, where is the proof that this is correct? I could write anything, you know me. So you're saying Mohit is making it up. But what if I send it to somebody who feels, oh no no, Mohit is somebody external, this is a WhatsApp message that I have received, this is true. That is human intelligence. You need to understand the data. It can provide you anything, right? Whatever is the prompt, it will give you a narrative, it can create a story. But that story validation, the concept, the understanding that this is what I have to believe and this is what I have to exclude, is my ability. And that is how we should all use AI. It's not something to be scared of, but it is something to leverage, use, but not to think that oh, this is something is going to replace humans or replace me, right? Couple of examples, I think we've already covered them, we've already captured, but it would be great if whenever you guys get time, do read about all these examples. So what happened in the IBM Watson case in the healthcare industry? It's a classic case where people thought that okay, using some models we'll be able to kind of predict cancer faster. And what was the result of the overall exercise after billions of dollars were spent on research? It's an interesting case, read about it. You'll understand that there are cases even with static data, and based on the data analysis you get some responses, but that does not, it's one solution does not fit all, is what you will understand with this. I think this is very specific to SAP, but the overall understanding, I think one of the examples that we talked about from a banking perspective, right? So SAP is SAP, we should call it. So SAP is an ERP, right? So it basically helps the organization to connect the dots between the various departments and bring in that level of efficiency. If HR department starts talking to the marketing department, they'll know better what is going on. If I'm hiring somebody, what sort of a remuneration I'm giving. So that understanding and that bringing the entire value chain together, this is the ability of SAP tools. But now they are also bringing in a lot of AI because they want to do things faster, deployment and whatnot. With human intelligence, right? If you're using HANA, if you're using FICO, it is imperative that you understand the use case for which the company is actually using that particular software or particular capability. If you understand, you definitely are going to bring in more use cases where you are going to solve something. The check example, if you know something that can be brought in, a bank is using ERP for this can bring in more changes and you can bring in that level of efficiency. So I think this is what something we've already touched upon. It's basically you who is going to bring in the difference, right? It is your ability to understand the ecosystem that you're working in, is essentially that is going to drive it. If you understand, yes, this is the space I'm working in a bank, I'm working in healthcare, you understand the process. If somebody a very famous example, you guys would have seen Munna Bhai MBBS, right? There was this case in the first or second part, I don't remember, where there was a patient who was very ill, and the family member was there in the queue, and Sanjay Dutt actually asked, is it mandatory to fill the form, right? You remember that scene, right? That's essentially the problem. That's a process problem. So if you understand the process, you can solve it. If you think that somebody coming to a hospital, it is mandatory to fill the form first, and while the patient is not well or it needs immediate help, that is where you are losing the human touch, you are losing the empathy, you are just following the process. And there are chains in India. If you go to Medanta, you'll understand they've actually taken action against that step. So if somebody is not well, they bypass a lot of process just to make sure the person gets the first attention. So that's the understanding of process, that's the understanding. Somebody would have realized that this is where human touch is required, right? So that's essentially the driving point here, I think. Okay, I would like to take a couple of minutes and maybe, use this time based on whatever we have discussed, right? Take any example in your life, right? It could be buying something from Amazon, check clearing, anything that you feel where you've used AI, but the response that you got, your response or your idea or your way of handling things were better. Any example in your personal life, from school to college to professional life, anything, anyone? No one. You all feel AI is doing better than you. Never tried that. Okay, no worries. So, okay, so we are almost concluding this, right? What are the key takeaways, right? In my view, the most important thing to understand here is that AI is not there to replace you, it's there to enable you to do things faster. So, any apprehension towards adoption should be avoided. You should definitely try and make sure that you learn, you spend time, you understand the capability. What you do with a chat GPT versus a Claude, where Claude is good. If I have to create a presentation, Claude is amazing. But when I have to do data analysis, I have a huge amount of data to analyze. That is where probably chat GPT does well. If I have to place a trade, maybe Grok is the best one. That experience will only come when you start adopting it, when you start using it for your benefit. When you're writing a thesis, you're writing some paper, which is the best agent to help you? So essentially you're asking is, you should think it of a way, I need help, who is the best person to help me with? Sometimes you go to your mother for help, right? Not everything you go to your father for help, right? If it is something of that sort, maybe that will help you to understand, yes, agents are there to help you, they're not there to replace you. That's the driving point. Again, context. So whatever response you are getting, it is imperative to understand the context in which you are asking things and the context in which the response is there. So every response should be clubbed with the context so that you understand, why am I using it, what's the response looking like. The other points I think we've kind of covered in different scenarios, but the way that you should think of it is that human are the ones who have created AI. So we are the most powerful people in this planet. We understand why we have built it. We have created agents who are going to help us, and that's something that you all should take away from this session. Thank you.